you everyone for coming down here to the PALLMANN Demo Theater. My name's Kelsey Quigg. I am the PALLMANN Technical and Product Manager, and my lovely assistant here today, RJ Samala, is the Rocky Mountain Territory Manager, but he has the most experience with this machine here in the US. So we are proud to introduce this new sanding machine called the PALLMANN Spider. And I did say sanding machine because a lot of multi-head machines, what we've heard from contractors, turn into basically, they say, their quotes, oversized or overpriced buffers. Okay? But this is a sanding machine, but it can also be a buffer. Okay? It can do both. It can be a buffer and a sanding machine. No one else out there has this type of equipment. So it's a 2.7 horsepower magnetic motor. Okay, so very safe, very durable, very strong. It does have a shear pin in there, but we have an electronics area with some colors that RJ is going to talk about in a little bit when he shows it, that we have safety mechanisms. Okay, this machine has been used in Europe now for 3 to 4 years, and we're just now introducing it into the US. So it's a new machine for us here. We've been testing it here in the US for 2 years, trying to perfect it, make it easier, work on abrasives, reduce the complicatedness, but it's been around for a very long time, so it's got a good, true history to it. So right off the bat, he's going to show you we've got the wheels that are airless wheels, okay, urethane ones that you're basically going to be able to roll it up and down stairs, roll it through the parking lot, and not damage anything, because if you do damage the wheels, it doesn't matter for the use. Right? We know with other machines, the wheels are very important. If you're rolling it onto the sidewalk or in the parking lot, then you're going to be damaging the wheels. It's going to inhibit how smooth it rolls. And then what he's showing you now with the dust skirt, the triple head. And we'll get more into the triple head when we take it apart, okay? Because with the 30 minutes here that we have the timing, we're not going to go ahead and build it and then take it apart. So we'll show more of that because the triple head disc is a chain driven, which we'll get to in a little bit. But you can see how easy it is to move. And the two handles real quick, if you can show the handles, RJ, how it's easy to get in and out of a truck, van, wherever you're going to be going, carrying it up, lifting it up into other areas in the house or wherever you're at. Is this a replacement for and then there's an extra weight. We're going to do the extra weight now for the initial cutting, which then can be taken off when we do later for fine sanding. Is this a replacement for the big belt sanding machine? For 90–95% of your jobs, absolutely. So a lot of you I know that have multi-heads that are overpriced buffers, it's for fine sanding only. You still have to have a belt sanding machine to do the initial cut, to do the initial sanding, right, to get the finish down or off, or get the cupping or warped floors down, and then you can go with your multi-heads. You're spending a lot of thousands of dollars on a belt sander and thousands of dollars on a multi-head, and a lot of you even have a buffer also, okay? And you're still doing a good amount of edging, right? We're still doing a lot of edging. So this can do all steps. And what we did is we have a pre-finished floor here. It is a kind of aluminum oxide type finish that is a hand scraped. So when RJ starts in a minute to abrade, we're going to leave half of it, so afterwards you can come see how it was hand scraped, how there's beveled edges, that we can get it flat and smooth. So this machine can go from start to finish with only one machine. You can get rid of the belt sanders, okay? And then you're going to greatly reduce edging because this thing can get up to about 1 inch to the wall. So we all know around kitchen islands, kitchen hallways, right, that are 5 feet wide and the wood goes side to side, that you have to sit there and kind of get your big machine, or you're there edging, bent over for many hours. With this machine, you can get anywhere, okay, into the pantries, in the closets, in the bathrooms, around the kitchen islands, that you're only going to have 1 inch or so around the wall to have to edge. So greatly reducing the edging aspect. Next thing before RJ takes over, dust containment, right? Unless you have a big trailer or a very oversized vacuum, I think a lot of contractors out there are not putting vacuums on the big machine, right, on the belt sanders, because the fibers and they clog up the filters. So a lot of contractors have a bag on the belt sander, right? And then you have the vacuum that's hooked up to the edger and the buffer. With our system here too that we sell, being the Cyclone, it's a pre-separator that will take most of the dust out. You can run it to a big machine, okay? There's no doubt about that. And then a vacuum that goes through, it's going to save the life of the filter. So we like to have this system together, but I don't want to go too much in that. I'd rather spend more time on the Spider. But where I'm getting at is from the initial sand to the rest of the whole floor, we are truly dustless. okay? Because that fine sand particle goes through the belt sanding big machine bag, where here it's a very small sand particle. We pick it all up. So you can truly be a dustless system with this machine from start to finish. Okay? No other big machine or anything out there can do this. So go ahead if you want to talk first and then tell me when to turn it on.
So you can see it's buffer format. It's a layback handle, a little different than a couple of the other planetary devices out there. It's going to run like a buffer in the layback style. So wherever you want it on your hip, and then safety, and it's got a German delayed start. So once you get power here, it's about 6 seconds to start.
Go ahead and turn it off real quick and then talk RPM.
And then we'll go into the variable speed. We're spinning from 80 to 400 RPMs. And we'll show you as we get going here. We'll see these lights come up and down, 3 green, a yellow, and a red. It's a built-in safety mechanism. If you run the machine on red for too long, it's going to automatically turn itself off before it does any damage to the electronics. Electronics and heat don't mix, so it's a safety override. But visually, you'll be able to see on your first cut, your 50 or 60 grit pass, you're going to want to take off. You're going to want to be spinning as much as the machine will give you, as fast as it will go without sitting in the red. If you get up in the red, slow it down a little bit, slow it down a little bit, get it to where it's green to yellow, then it's going to run all day, no issue. But it's just a built-in, it's one of the 2 built-in safety mechanisms on the machine to protect itself. So, again, safety on, trigger up. Once those light up, you got about 6 seconds for it to start. On your first pass, a little bit different than the big machine, we're typically going to go across the grain at a 90-degree angle like this. And then we're going to come back across. Again, like a regular buffer, we're sanding out here at about 3 o'clock on a clock face. So we're sanding predominantly on the right-hand side. Where that comes into effect is once you get here, you're going to want to go around and block off the other walls to keep limiting your edging. So we're starting on this panel with 50 grit. Pan across the floor, you can see some of the hand scrape left there and how easily it's handling it. One of the thought processes with working with this machine the last couple of years is developing an attitude of let's slow down at this step to speed the entire job up. So most of the guys are talking about, you know, there's no way you can finish a floor in the same amount of time as I can with my traditional setup. And I will say, I will put money on a bet, if you and I show up at a house side by side, equal floor plans, and I come in and sand with this device, you come in and sand with a traditional big machine edge or buffer setup, I'm going to beat you out of the house 9 times out of 10. If you have a 20 by 40 square foot room that's a perfect square, not much edging, yeah, you might get close. Or you're probably going to beat me, I might get close to you. If we have any edging we're dealing with at all, I'm limiting my edging to 1 inch around the entire building. Hallways, closets, that whole footprint is done now with this machine. That comes into play too. So you see how, I don't know, probably hard to see in the sands, but as it lights up into red, it will shut itself off eventually.
It's very rare that it happens. In the last 2 years, we've only done that once, and that's when we were running 2 weights with a little bit too much speed. But it's very rare, but it's a safety mechanism to make sure you don't destroy the machine. So right there, what RJ was using was the 50 grit. It was ceramic. One of the things there, when he pulls up, he's going to put down another grit here. We are recommending different mineral types of paper. Right now, we don't have our own paper, but we do have recommendations. I think you guys can see some of the color of it. You may know what it is. That's the actual Norton Red Heat, but it's ceramic that we started with. And you want to start as fine as possible. Okay, start as fine as possible. But right now, you saw how quick that was. Sitting on a big machine, right? It's a little bit more work. After a while, we all know our wrists are hurting, wrists are going down. This is a very more ergonomical way to do it. It's less stress on your body. You're not as fatigued, not as difficult at the end of the day. And one of the things that RJ will show you here in a second is we all know with the big machine, you have to be pretty experienced to know what you're doing, and you don't want to give it to just anybody, right? Because if you stop, you get a huge drum mark. Or if you're walking along not paying attention and you bump into the corner or you bump into baseboards, right, you get a very big drum mark, then you'd have to change boards. With this type of machine, we can sit in one spot for a long enough time that you're not going to have dish out, you're not going to have drum marks. You will produce the flattest floors you've ever seen with this type of machine. So we'll let them get this real quick. You do want to vacuum in between because the sandpaper does release some of the minerals. So there are some little ceramic particles on the floor, and you don't want to get that underneath your finer grit and have to create more swirls or create scratches. Okay, so you do want to vacuum in between each step. What grit you put on now?
60 grit. So we went in this case, and this is where guys in the field are going to make their own decisions. We've got the same floor in our booth down there that we've been sanding with 60 grit this morning. It's not quite that fast, but we're putting in less scratch that we're going to have to take out on our secondary pass. So guys can make a decision, do I want to cut this down a little faster and then work to get the scratches back out, or do I want to spend a little bit more time, put less scratches in, have less scratches to get back out? Either way works fine. This opens up that more than other machines on the market at this point. We got frozen German hoses that have not loosened up yet out of the box. So in the first pass, we're typically sanding at that 90-degree angle to the floor whenever possible. The next two passes, we are typically going to be a 3-pass system. 50 or 60 grit, 80 grit, and 100 grit. You can finish with the tri-head, with the paper, or we can go to the single head, which will also come with the machine. We can use that as our final pass, and we're going to be using that for intercoat abrasion. At this point now, the next two passes, we are going to go directionally with the floor in a traditional buffer style.
And that's where every floor is different. We need to do a test area to see what's the fastest system you can do. There's quite a few floors that we did a 50 grit ceramic, and then an 80 grit ceramic, and then a 120 grit screen, and it was perfect to stain. And some floors we've been able to do in just 2 cuts with the paper. If you're doing a natural, like oil modified poly, or just natural waterborne, you can do it with just 2 cuts of the paper. So you want to start as fine as possible, do a little test area to see what is the fastest and most efficient way.
And producing the proper results for that floor. You can adjust much more than with other types of sanding. And we're going to go, the variable speed, we're going to go down in speed each sequence to keep from burnishing the floor to a point where it will no longer accept stain or penetrating oil like magic oil. So we're typically walking down from as much as the machine will give us. Now I'm at about 280 RPMs. My final pass is going to be at a traditional 175 in that range for any stain floor. If you're doing straight water base, I don't have a problem with you spinning it faster and polishing it a little bit more. Will help eliminate a lot of the grain raise that's associated with waterborne finishes because you're presenting a smoother surface. But if you need to stain it, we need some porosity left there for the stains or oils to soak into. So we're going to go, like I say, traditional buffer style at this stage, back and forth, and getting guys in the mindset to slow down to speed up. That's kind of the idea behind the machine. And so you saw how fast it was with 50 grit. The same would hold true over here on this with 60 grit, but it's not going to be quite as fast. But you could do the same thing, still get it flat, put in less scratches, just take a little more time on this step, a little less time on the next 2 steps.
Switch to 80. So I know we talk a lot about the industry, and I know they've talked about it at the opening ceremony, where we do have a labor shortage in the hardwood department, right? In hardwood around the country, it's hard to find younger generation talent out there to come and to sand floors. Well, we know the experience level, you have to have some experience to be running big machines, to be running the edgers, to be running the buffers, and it's kind of scary. Well, now imagine that all you have to teach them is just basically a buffer. So you can get some young kids in here that do not have the years of experience of being a hardwood contractor, and all they're doing is running a buffer. And they're getting really close to the wall. You can even tell them to stay a few more inches away so they don't hit the baseboards until they get good with it, right? But it's just running a buffer. That's all it is. And you saw where RJ was just standing here for a little bit letting it go. There's no dish out. There's no drum marks. There's no issues that you have to change boards or do anything differently.
Backing a wheel, dropping a wheel of a big machine into a heater vent, you're tearing out boards. Throwing the cord behind you and getting it tangled up in your feet down that long hallway. I sanded for 24 years as a contractor. Everybody's done it. You got that stop, you're trying to get the drum off the floor. Now you got a drum mark in the middle of your hallway, you got to get back out. Cord management is a complete non-issue. You don't ever think about it at all. The cord just pushes around with your feet or by itself. So the safety of it and the ability to do damage to the floor is just almost nil. So I'm going to vacuum this real quick. So we've gone from 50 to 60 in this case, and then we're going to go straight to 100 just to show you guys the scratching. Each setup is going to vary a little bit as far as how long it's going to last, obviously, depending on the finish that's on the floor. I'm averaging about 250 square feet per 3-disc setup. Most of these papers are going to, in the ceramic level, it's going to cost you about $1 per sheet. So we're doing about 800 to 900 square feet for $9, about the same price as a belt. It's been very average. It's worked out where paper cost has really been a direct wash from belt sanding to this sanding. It was one of our big concerns that we would be eating up a lot more of this paper, and yeah, we might be able to generate a perfect floor, but if I'm going to cost you 3 times as much on sandpaper, some of the distributors in the house might like that. The contractor's not going to like it. But at this point right now, it's working out to be a very equal wash on paper.
And one of the things we might not have mentioned, it's a standard 7-inch hook and loop disc. So we're not making you buy a special size or special brand. It's the same ones that you use on your edger. Okay, so it's the same paper, the ones that what brand that you typically like to use. You don't have to buy a special size or special anything like that. Okay, so it goes on your edger, it goes on the Spider. We all stock it, we all have it. It's good to go.
And you have much less opportunity of not having the right piece of paper in your van.
You gonna take a weight off or you gonna leave it on?
Oh yeah, sorry. And then so, normally the first 2 passes with ceramic and zirconiums, we're going to run the weight. At this point at 100 grit, we're going to remove the external weight. 35 pounds on the weight. The machine itself, 88 pounds. That triple drive head down there weighs half as much as this machine. That's 42 pounds underneath there. So the machine's 88 pounds with the handles. Couldn't be easier to get it up and down a flight of stairs or in and out of a van at the end of the day. So we're going to slow down to 175 and finish this panel with this part of the panel off. And so this is where I can feel, I can tell guys are going to want to speed the machine up at this point. And like I say, if you're doing a straight water base, I'm fine spinning it much faster, but if we're going to stain or oil this floor, we need a little bit of porosity there. We still need some absorption. And that's where finishing at 175 is going to be very critical, very important.
One of the things for natural oiled floors, the biggest mistakes out there I think made, and every manufacturer will tell you, is that the floor is sanded too fine. Then there's not enough absorption. And if you read even stain manufacturers, their recommendations, they want you to finish it in 80 grit, okay? Because they need that absorption. So natural oil, stain, you want the absorption. Too many of the multi-head out there, and sometimes like RJ said, you want to go fast. You get too many RPMs, and then you close those pores, and then you don't get penetration. And any manufacturer's natural oils will not work if you close the pores too much, if you sand too fine. And then, of course, you will get a lighter coloring and maybe not the best absorption of a stain. So it all depends on what type of finish are you putting down, of maybe what speed, what sequence that you want to go through.
Now, I've spent most of my adult life sanding hardwood floors, 24 years as a contractor. And I will tell you right now, I don't know of another machine where I could stand here and talk in a normal voice to you guys and still be able to hear it. The fatigue factor that quieter equipment is on your body is palpable as you get older. I'm 53 years old now, and I will say this, you are not as beat up and worn out at the end of the day sanding in this style as traditional, and a lot of it is volume. PALLMANN has paid a lot of attention in reducing the volume of the equipment that we use. You can hear the vacuum, the buffer, our edger is under 90 decibels. And it's long-term health for these guys. It's a huge difference. And physically, it's very noticeable how much it doesn't wear you out. So at that point, we're ready to water pop and stain or coat. That floor is, I mean, we got some V-bevels here that we didn't spend enough time to get all the way out, but that's neither here nor there for a demo theater.
And to RJ's point, we can do it through the paper, or we could put the single head, because there's still a lot of us out there that like to use screens, because it is an American clutch, so you can put the single head on and use a screen, or use a sanding disc, double-sided disc, whatever is your preference. And then obviously we'll take the dust guard off in a second and show you I can do like natural oils. So you can see it's chain driven. So the plate spins one direction and then the chain drives the other three the other direction, so it gets that digging. That's why we can get the aggressiveness. It's not all spinning the same direction. One spinning one and then there's an actual chain pulling it going the other way. That's why we can sand down brand new floors or water damaged. As you guys can see when we're done, how beveled this was and hand scraped, how quickly he got it down because of the aggressiveness of that disc, of that triple head plate.
So then, like I say, I'm an older guy. I learned how to sand. I like to finish with a 16 grit or 100 grit 16-inch screen. That's my preferred method of finishing. So you can finish with that. The machine's going to come with that head, or in this setup right here for intercoat abrasion. So before final coat. And one of the nice things about teaching a new guy to buff in this format is we can slow this machine down a long ways and he can start learning how to buff very carefully. So we'll just do a little intercoat abrasion.
And that's where I mentioned the variable RPMs. You can go from 400 RPMs at the fastest all the way down to 80 and everything in between. Okay, and we have nice paperwork and sheets to help you to make sure that you don't over polish or things with all of our testing, so it's not too complicated. But to RJ's point, as you guys know, the buffer is a very difficult machine to learn, especially for newer contractors out there, or newer, I think we've all had the employee or someone in the office that you get on the buffer, right? So it just takes off on them so you can make fun of them and laugh. But that's where you can slow the RPMs down so much that it's not going to take off on somebody when you're teaching them and training them how to use this type of machine. So it's going to be lower RPMs, it's going to be easier for them, and then once they use it on a couple floors, they can turn it up and be good. So last thing, because we got 5 more minutes. Go ahead, if you want to do it all, just so everyone can feel it. And then one of the things too, and I'll go ahead and do this while he's vacuuming, so you can see how the dust skirt moves. So it goes with the contours of the floor. It goes with different if you have a single head or the triple head, or if you have a padding on there, because you can put the sandpaper directly on the triple disc so that it moves, but it's just a fabric. So if you want to do a stain, and I think you guys saw there was no dust this whole time until I took the dust skirt off. But if you want to buff in with a carpet, like you want to buff your stain in, or if you're doing a natural oiled floor, you can take the dust skirt off that easy. It goes on that easy. Then you can have your red pads, white pads, and you're not getting oil on your dust skirts, and you're not getting it on there, okay? So now it's a standard buffer that you can use to remove natural oils or carpet in your stain.
And you can turn the RPMs down. Buffing in stain and penetrating oils like magic oil works much better at a slower speed, so that you're not creating as much sling or swirl, it can grind it in more. There's actually, in Australia, they actually sell low-speed buffers just for putting natural oils on. So you can, this machine, I've done it several times now, magic oil on the floor, you slow the speed down, and it feels like you're going slow, but you're really, really in control and driving the oil into the floor.
And then one last thing that increases the versatility of this machine, we've had this for quite a few years, the Ninja, which is a diamond plate. It does fit your standard buffer out there, but we've realized over the years, being only 175 RPMs, it's a little bit slow on concrete and a little bit slower when you want to remove adhesive. Okay, because we know, how do we remove adhesive? Scraping, right? Razor scraping, and the concrete's never flat. There's always holes and digs and lines that you sit there and hit, and it jars through your elbow, it goes through your shoulder. I think we've all hate that. RJ scraped for many years. He'll be happy to tell you many stories how much he hated it. But this diamond plate, we have different segments that can remove epoxy coatings, real aggressive, nasty, wet black tar adhesive that's 40 years old but still wet. Another adhesive remover that's maybe for more of like a hardwood adhesive for rubbery, and then 2 different types of diamonds to be grinding the actual concrete. So when you have this type of machine that you have, let's say you did a tear out of hardwood and you have the adhesive on the concrete, you can go in there, get that RPMs up pretty fast, much faster than a standard buffer, have that additional weight, have maybe one of the adhesive removers, and instead of scraping, you're walking and it's fast. We do have some videos on this. It's as fast as what he was doing, maybe a little faster. We don't have the time or the ability. They wouldn't like us to grind the concrete up here. But it takes that adhesive off super fast. You're just walking with the buffer, and then you can go ahead and put a diamond on it, and then you just opened up that concrete. You just ground it enough to maybe put a moisture mitigation system of an epoxy or a primer and re-glue down the floor. Now once you do the concrete, you just vacuum everything out, and then you're upstairs using it to sand the floor. So one machine can grind off adhesive, can grind your concrete, sand your floor from start to finish, buff in your stain, do your intercoat abrasion, all of that with one machine. The only thing you do need is an edger to just get that little bit, which is much easier than having 6 inches, right, that you have to cross cut and go. You're just running around with the edger, scraping a few corners, that's it, start to finish. Anything else you want to add?
So like I say, I think the proof will be, I mean, the belief system of there's no way I can sand as fast with this setup. That's the question I get all the time. I've been working with this machine for 2.5 years. And I will say, as an old hardwood guy, I was humbled for a while. I was not used to the planetary system. We worked through that. We got the right abrasives. We got the right sequencing. We changed a couple of the pad setups on it. And I'm producing now, by myself, the best work that I ever produced as a contractor. If I get let go from PALLMANN, which I hope not, I'm going to buy that machine and I'm going to go sand with that as my only unit. That's where my belief has come to this machine. Is to that level. If I'm going back into sanding, it's one machine on my truck and that's it.
Well, thank you guys. We're out of time. Thank you very much. If you want to please come up, look at the panel.